Hello everyone, Ramirez here, Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about Harnischfechten and equipment by talking about Gambesons and what goes on underneath your armor. So right now I am wearing an arming coat. This is my newest arming coat, so all of my armor will attach to this. This is my underlying base layer. Now, what you might notice is that it's not padded, and if you've followed some of the other YouTubers like Scholar Gladiatoria, Matt Easton's channel, he'll talk about an arming coat, and he'll be wearing something comparable to this. This one's obviously geared to my colors for my fighting club, but it's just a linen arming coat consistent with 15th and later on 16th century type attire. So I want to share with you my wisdom, and to me, wisdom isn't just smarts overall. It's that you make mistakes, and then you improve and you learn, and you basically save someone like yourself who might be saying, "What do I wear under my armor?" and learn from my mistakes, so you can progress faster. Now, under kit really kind of depends on the level of armor that you have. The simpler your armor, the more exposed gaps, the more you're going to want to have thicker and more padded protection to protect you in the spots that your armor doesn't cover. My newest armor covers a lot, and anything that isn't covered in plate is covered in chainmail. So largely, I don't have to worry about a lot of padding because the metal is going to do that job for me. So with that said, let's go to Exhibit A. All right, so here's Exhibit A. This was from Forge of Svan, and I thought I was doing a great deal. I'd seen pictures of it on the internet. It was made in Europe. It was well padded, well constructed. I even got these fancy buckles that were handmade by Ukrainian artists. Fantastic. But unfortunately, Forge of Svan is meant for Bohurt. And some of you are probably going to get ahead of me on this, but when they listed it on their website, they said it would be good for Harnischfechten. And I was like, great, black, gold, these are my colors. I'll work with it. I waited a long time for them to produce this custom sized, custom fit to me. And it would be good, but it would be good for Bohurt, not Harnischfechten. And you might say, why? Look at how well padded this is. Look at how long it is. It would cover the body. Well, one small problem that they didn't tell me came with detachable sleeves. This meant the armpit is open. This didn't work at all. I complained to Forge of Svan. They didn't refund me, but they did correct their website and said this was not good for Harnischfechten. Little late on their part, but they did do that, and they offered me some other promotional stuff to basically say they were sorry, but they weren't going to take it back. So, yeah, big, huge waste of time and money. When you're looking at Gambesons, always make sure for Harnischfechten that the sleeves are sewn completely to your Gambeson. If you see something online, it doesn't have to be as fancy as this. It can be. There's a lot of stuff on Cult of Athena or other websites saying Gambesons. Remember, your armpits are going to be one of your biggest targets. So if you're getting a Gambeson, make sure that those are sewn shut. This one was the mistake. This is the one I would ask you to please learn from my mistakes about buying arming garments and make sure that whatever you're using, it's not like the sleeves aren't laced together. They're sewn. So the arms, there should be no armhole. Now in Bohurt, they don't do thrusting, so this isn't an issue. This is a feature, not a bug, because for them this gives them extra ventilation because no one's going to deliberately try to stab them into their armpit. This actually works out to be a feature, but in harness, stabbing is one of the main goals. So you want to always make sure your Gambeson is protecting your armpits. And you can see that even on this brand new one that's part of my kit, my elbows are sewn in, and oftentimes padding is more important on a heavy impact sport like bow hurt or even SCA for that matter, where they're going to be hitting you with heavy sticks as hard as they can. Or in bow hurt, they're going to hit you with steel blunted swords as hard as they can. So the padding becomes very, very important. And it's just not as important in harness, but definitely having those areas that generally armor's not going to be, such as under your arms, very, very important. Doesn't matter how fancy the buckles are. Occasionally I'll use this when I'm not fighting. I might use it as a dress, part of a dress outfit, but I don't use it when I'm actually fighting. So, on to our next gambeson. Now this one's kind of cool. This one actually I do still use with my setup with my brigandine. It's in the club colors, so it's black and gold. It ties closed, has arms with arming points on them. Really kind of nice. Came from Arm Street. My first squire has been using this for a while till finally he just got his own, I think about a month, 2 months ago. And he's using that instead, which, fantastic. Only real downside to this particular one is a little ahistorical. So if you have some very high historical events, they may look at you a little funny. This one's in linen. I have another version of it in velvet. Very nice. I don't use it for armor. I usually use it to dress up for events. But it's a two-parter, and that's what I like about it. So I'm going to show you. Here's the full garment. The sleeves make this little vest. And this is what I typically use in my brig kit right now, because the center of it is just thin linen material, not unlike this. It does have some padding at the arms. This is not terribly padded. As you can see, it's actually fairly thin, but does have padding through the arms, which, once again, my brig kit has some non-metal lower cannons, so they're actually banded steel with leather, and I could use a little bit of padding there because it's not the solid steel cannon that goes over the forearm. So this kind of works for me. And obviously it worked for my squire when he was using his kit. But I stopped in my kit using the vest part of this. Still, I've loaned it out to people who are marshalling tournaments and stuff. Pretty handy for that. The reason I don't use it is because, once again, I have titanium brig. So my brigandine already protects me. I don't really need that additional padding. And the same thing is true when I'm wearing steel armor. I don't need the padding because I have steel plates. I don't need that. Now, as I said, my squire, he actually did use this, and I'll explain the reason why. He had a breastplate, which meant the front of him was protected in steel. He wears a chainmail hauberk, so the back of him, if he didn't wear this, he would just have chainmail. So he oftentimes would wear this either over or under his chainmail, so that it gave him an extra layer of protection. So if it was struck, this is going to absorb some of that impact. And if you're wearing something that's just a breastplate, just a front, you probably do want some type of padded gambeson to cover your torso for the places that are still vulnerable. This also would include if you're wearing a Globos style breastplate, because the Globos only covers, basically, it should only cover up to like the rib cage, maybe a little bit lower than that. So you have your whole, the rest of your stomach and that lower abdomen area that is exposed. And if you're wearing a chainmail hauberk, you do have some mail protection, but that is flexible. So if you're hit with impact tools, such as a poleaxe, you want to have something padding that chainmail just to reduce the impact. So I'm not saying there isn't a place for padded garments, especially once again, depending on your kit. If your kit is earlier, if you're using like a chainmail hauberk or long chainmail shirt, you may want padding underneath that if you don't have plate that's covering it. My kit is late 15th, almost 16th century, so I have plate everywhere. And if you've ever seen the videos that I've done of a demo on my Facebook page, I think I have it, you can see me, but I have plate everywhere. So it's really not an issue for me that I need a ton of padding. As a matter of fact, I want my armor to fit as closely to my body as possible. Dr. Tobias Capel oftentimes describes armor as a second skin. And the more you pad yourself out, the less you're going to get that second skin kind of nature and that freeing movement that padding garments are going to inherently kind of keep you from having that kind of fit. So padded garments also can be really good if you have a lot of munitions grade armor. In other words, the armor doesn't quite fit you properly. That padding can really be of help. But if you have custom armor, whether or not it's really, really high-end custom armor or just armor that was made to your measurements, and I've talked about that in other armor videos, you can get armor that isn't the highest, like $30,000-$40,000 armor that's still made to measure, that's still made to your measurements. And the closer that is, the less padded garments you are going to need. I'm going to go to the last iteration that I wore before this, and I'll share with you that in the next segment. So let's get to that right now. So this is this is also a padded gambeson. It is a half gambeson, so it has one kind of closure at the top, and it basically is like a tank top. This is not going all the way down. It only goes to about my rib cage. And this actually had a lot of benefits. I wear male voiders, and they're shaped kind of like a vest. So it has sleeves, but it only, and I have a video, if you've followed, or if you just go and look in the harness section, you'll see my video about my voiders. But they buckle up, but they only go to about my rib cage once again because I have plate mail and my breastplate covers everything else. I don't need that much mail. The nice thing about a half gambeson, if you have that kind of setup, is you can slip the mail onto this first and then just throw it on, and you're done. Anyone who's had the joy of putting on and taking off chainmail, especially hauberks where you have to do the chainmail shuffle to get them off, or maybe you have to have people adjust it when you're sliding it on your body. Having a half gambeson, if you have a set of voiders, as I said, you just pop the one side on this sleeve, the one side on this sleeve, and then you just throw this on and boom, you're done. You can actually put on a set of voiders quite quickly with a half gambeson. Once again, a little more padded. Once again, that helps make you a little bit bigger. The more tailored your armor is, the more something like this becomes excessive. But I have been using this for the past few years. One of the nice things, and this was from Bergschneider, was it's just a cotton material. So when it came to the sleeves, and I don't know how well you can see that, I actually cut them down because obviously I'm a big person around the chest and body, but I'm a short person, so I have shorter arms. And it was very easy to modify this so that it fit my sleeve length appropriately. And it didn't take long to put some bias tape, stitch this up, and I was good to go. And I would honestly say this served me really well versus a big, heavy, padded gambeson, which if you're fighting in the middle of summer, that can get really hot. And that's another reason you want to cut down on the size of your gambeson. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what I'm wearing. So this is from Revival Clothing. They don't pay me to say this. I paid for it. I paid a lot more for it because it's custom. It has all the different color gradations. Um, but this is just a couple of layers of linen. It is very thin. It has no padding. It fits very snugly, so if I stand up, hopefully you can see it's pretty tight. And that's actually the way you want it. You want it to be tight against your body. The sleeves actually do lace up so that it can give me that nice tight fit versus something that was looser. The sleeves would be a bit bigger. This allows my armor to be as close to my body as possible. And once again, because largely it's plate, I don't need the padding to protect me. The armor will do its job. And so I would say if you're starting out and you're doing armor, and your armor doesn't necessarily fit you properly, you might want a little bit of padding. And especially if you're doing earlier period stuff where you have just the globose breastplate, no back plate, maybe you have tiny little roundel style spalders. If you have a lot of exposure to the places that people are going to stab, which is typically going to be your shoulder, your armpit, the places that are exposed that don't have plate, you're probably better suited to having a padded gambeson. I don't want to knock those, but make sure your padded gambeson has sewn arms. So just like this, and once again, the way they sew these, I get lots of arm movement without this shifting, without my body, the material of the body shifting around. And that's another perk. Most well-designed gambesons should do that. If it just has a straightforward T shape and you're raising your arms and the whole gambeson is lifting up, probably it doesn't fit you right. Probably it wasn't designed. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind if you're working with different types of gambeson. But once again, going back to this, if you have predominantly plate, you can either, sew voiders, or in my case, as I said, I have the vest style, and I just put that on over this, then start adding my plate. I do have arming points here. Most of these will come with arming points. I have some other arming points on the closer to my legs. If I want to attach my legs to this, I will probably still use my Leander because of how the setup is. But this will give me a lot more flexibility. It will be lighter because I don't have that padding. In the summer months, if I'm doing tournaments, spring, summer, early fall, I want something that is comfortable. This is comfortable. It'll be comfortable in that weather. And one last thing is, if you have a nice linen arming coat like this, you want to protect it. And even though you can't see it, I do have a linen undershirt under here. So most of the sweat stuff, that personal layer, just historically, you would wear a linen shirt underneath this. I'm wearing a long sleeve, so the sleeves are actually here. It might be buried a little bit under there, but you can see I have my linen long sleeve shirt. Very comfortable, very light. I was wearing that during my most recent tournament at the Argent Lion, the Deed of the Argent Lion. This is all very, very comfortable. And that's important when you're going to be sweating it out for a day in heavy armor. So I hope you found this useful. If you do have questions about gambeson for harness or anything else regarding Harnischfechten and soft kit or even armor itself, I have a playlist here specifically for Harnischfechten. And as I did more and get more experience, you get more advanced videos like this. So I hope you found this useful. And once again, I'm Ramirez, Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts. We're based out of Norfolk, Virginia. And I will see you in the next video.